it is important for all the big powers in European powers in NATO to truly deliver capabilities, and that goes for the UK as well.
World leaders, policymakers and military officials have descended on Bavaria as the Munich Security Conference gets underway. Europe is trying to de-escalate and reset relations with the US after tensions over Greenland, support for Ukraine and an American retreat from its NATO commitments. But it hasn't been a particularly friendly start. The US ambassador to the UN, Mike Waltz, has already been expressing American dissatisfaction with the current world order.
We needed to put the UN on a diet. Everyone agrees that reform was needed. We are pushing hard for the UN to go back to basics, to that peacemaking and peacekeeping function that was core to its founding. And the biggest problem we've seen is that it's trying to do too much for everyone and be everything to every nation.
In response, Kaja Kallas, the EU's most senior diplomat, acknowledged that we need to bring diplomacy up to speed with the reality of today.
The Security Council is not working the way it was meant to be. The United Nations is not reflecting the world as it currently is. So I think we have to use this opportunity to really develop this world forward, because majority of the countries in the world want rules-based order, want some kind of rules to govern the way we talk, the way we interact with each other.
Well, so Keir Starmer is there on his way too, and is set to make the case for the UK and its Western allies to forge a multinational defence initiative that could oversee joint weapons procurement and drive down the costs of rearmament. So let's get the latest on all of this from the Times' defence editor, Larisa Brown. Good afternoon, Larisa.
Good afternoon.
Tell us first what the mood's like compared to last year, which was a bit of a bombshell from the US, wasn't it?
Well, exactly. Around this time last year, I remember being here when we obviously had that speech from J.D. Vance where he instead of attacking Putin and his illegal war, he attacked Europe for what he claimed was migration issues and problems with censorship. So actually, it all feels quite calm here at the moment. Now, I'm obviously speaking before we've heard from Marco Rubio tomorrow, and I think everybody's waiting for that. But I think there's a general sense that he's a bit more diplomatic, and we're not going to have some sort of angry statement about the Europeans as we did last year. Generally, there's a lot of talk about how the Europeans and including the Brits are obviously trying to work together more and prove to the US that they're serious about their defences and working together and developing major defence procurement projects together, which would in turn save a lot more money for the Europeans and make the US be able to step back a little bit.
But is Marco Rubio as influential within the administration as J.D. Vance was? So I mean, does it matter so much what he says?
I think it. I mean, clearly it does matter what he says, and I think that everybody is waiting for that speech tomorrow. But I think some of the conversations that we've had in the lead up to this, there's been the NATO Defence Ministerial meeting in Brussels, and one of Trump's top military strategists was commenting on the general situation, and it was a bit more toned down. I think that other European leaders are calling for today for sort of a reset and greater ties between all the nations. But at the same time, there's clearly a strong desire by the Europeans to be able to defend their countries without America. And I think that's what everyone is working to in the next few years, making sure that they are independent of the US.
So where does Britain fit into all of this? Just tell us about this multinational defence force that Keir Starmer's talking about. Where does that fit within the European initiatives?
So Keir Starmer's here. We've also got John Healey and Yvette Cooper here. So all three of them. We're hearing from Starmer tomorrow, but he is expected to make this speech, which will talk more about how Britain is going to be working with the Europeans, and there's going to be more multilateral agreements, which means that we're instead of creating our own I don't know, weapons system. We're going to be doing it with the likes of Germany or France to save money. And
So he's on
it
the
will
same
also mean that if we are
page as
faced with
Europe.
the war, yeah,
He's on the same page as Europe
very
on that.
much.
There's not a cigarette paper between them.
No, I think that all the message from here is that, we're very much working with the Europeans, and that's pretty crucial going forward if we're going to be able to deter Russia.
Well, let's talk about Russia and particularly Ukraine, because there seems to be very little prospect for developments on peace in Ukraine. Is that right?
That's right. And the mood music here is that, there isn't going to be a peace deal. Putin is absolutely not serious about it. He still has his maximalist objectives of not just having the Donbass region, but taking Kyiv. And that is all not going to change unless countries send more weapons to Ukraine, more financial support, and change Putin's calculus by forcing him to move out of Ukraine.
Well, Larisa, I always really enjoy your reporting in the Times, so I'll let you get back to it so you can file your copy for the paper. But thank you very much for joining us here on Times Radio. And you can read Larisa Brown's comments and analysis in the paper online, wherever you get your Times. It will be there as and when she has it from the Munich Security Conference. Well, let's turn now to Dr Anna Wieslander, who's Northern Europe Director for the Atlantic Council, who's also in Munich. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Obviously, there are sort of low expectations given what happened last year. How would you rate European and American security ties now? Have they been damaged beyond repair or not?
I don't believe it's beyond repair, but definitely, of course, severely harmed when it comes to the level of trust. But I must say that the start of this conference, at least, has a bit less of Europe alone and a bit more of at least trying to see what can we keep and what can we work with across the Atlantic. So a bit more perhaps hopeful in that regard. And I believe that the US presence here so far, what we have heard from, for instance, UN Ambassador Waltz, who was on stage, others, Colby from Pentagon, who also was in Brussels yesterday speaking at the Defense Ministerial. Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, did not come. But the message has been de-escalative and more, working practically forward. So also the Americans are here and they are at least, willing to engage. So far, that's the dynamic, I would say.
Well, and we've had this letter from former US ambassadors to NATO and commanders in Europe. We're going to be hearing from one of the signatories later in the programme. But it's quite forthright with the US, talking about the fact that far from being a charity, as they put it, NATO is a force multiplier that allows the US to assert its power and influence. Is there a sense that you're going to get any commitment there from US about the value of NATO and what America gets from NATO?
Well, yes, in a way, US has not left NATO. I think that was from the first Trump administration, threats of the US leaving NATO. But they are very clear that they want Europe to pay more, as they say, spend more on defense, and also take a lead on the conventional parts of NATO. And that means that we really have to start a major burden shifting process. We did see a start of that with the shifts in the command structure that was agreed upon and presented earlier this week, where Europeans will take control over the geographic command centers. That's just the beginning of what we're seeing. So I think, they will stay and they will keep the extended deterrence, but there will be major changes and Europe will take a lead in a way that we haven't done before.
Well, let's put that to the test, because there was an interesting analysis in the Times this morning about this kind of hockey stick spending that, it's a reverse hockey stick, really, that, the military spending is put off in Europe until the end of the spending period. And so there's some sort of fancy footwork on the figures. How do you think the EU commitments on defence really stand up to scrutiny?
Well, that's a great question. And I think there are major problems. And one of the problems that we do see, I think, is that some countries deliver. I'm Swedish. We're the Nordics, the Baltics, Poland, Germany, while others are lagging behind. We have major problems with UK, France, also Spain has said clearly that they don't want to commit basically to the Hague Summit pledge of 5% by 2035. So this could be, a potential danger to the whole project, of course, of we don't know how will the US react if they don't see a process in 1 or 2 years. And can we do this? We have to have the ambition to do a burden shifting process together with the Americans, but this could be potentially very complicated.
Well, you singled out the UK in that list of sort of backsliders, as it were. Just to put it in the context, Russia currently spends more than 7% of GDP on defence. Britain is just under 2.5%. There's such a gulf there. What will people be saying to Keir Starmer about Britain needing to sort of up its game on all of this?
Well, it is important for all the big powers European powers in NATO to truly deliver capabilities, and that goes for the UK as well. So it is, of course, important with the political support, the right words, action, but we do need the capabilities, because smaller countries, we can spend, a far greater percent of our GDP on defense, but still the sums in practical terms are not that big. There is a difference between the budget of, for instance, Estonia and the UK. So for major investments, also the UK as a nuclear power, there are expectations of the UK delivering on capabilities.
Yeah, those expectations to date have not been met.
So far, I think that we would like to see much more. Actually, there is more needed to be done by the UK here.
And just finally, just a sort of big thought, standing back really, when you think about JD Vance last year and the kind of shockwaves that sent across the world, but particularly across Europe, do you feel that there is now no longer shock in Europe, but a sort of quiet determination?
Actually, I'm not sure that we are there yet. Yes, more determined, definitely, but there is still a lot of various sentiments. Some really believe that we are on our own and that's how it will be. Others are almost, very persistent that we need to keep the transatlantic bond. There is a general lack of trust long term. I think we now have had a period of high escalation from the American side with seizing Greenland. That is behind us, we believe, but there might be scars that are hard to repair. And I think there is no coherent view on Europe versus the US or how to move forward. But we have to take this step by step.
Dr Anna Wieslander, thank you very much for joining us.